Okay, I think we're live.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the email marketing workshop with Nathan Barry and myself, Tim Grahl. We're going to get rolling here in the next couple minutes, but before we really get started, I just want to make sure that all the technology is working. So, for those of you that are signed into the chat, if you can hear me, can you just drop in, yes, we can hear you, and just let me know to make sure everything's working before we really get rolling here.
Yeah, so we'll just wait a second to hear from a couple people. I can see on my end that the video is starting to come through, so that's
Great.
good.
All right. Can you hear me? Can you just drop in, yes, we can hear you, and just let me know to make sure everything's working before.
All right, sounds like everything's coming through well, and yeah, the video is rolling. Perfect. It's good to have such an engaged group.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm really excited about this. Last year, one of the things that I try to do when I'm learning about all the latest things with internet marketing and book marketing and helping authors really build their platform so they can sell more books, I always try to find like who's doing the coolest stuff out there, who is really doing well with doing innovative things in book marketing, really connecting with their tribe. And over, as I asked people, Nathan Barry's name kept coming up over and over and over. And so I subscribed to him, I started following him, and basically did the whole internet stalker thing and really was watching everything and was just so impressed with the way that he interacted with his fans. So many of us are scared of, doing marketing because we don't want to be too pushy or come across as spammy or any of that kind of thing. And Nathan just does such a good job of teaching his audience, sharing really valuable content, but also selling a lot of books in the process. So I got connected with him earlier this year, got to know him a little bit, and reached out to him to see if he'd want to do a workshop because he's got this really cool product he's created called ConvertKit as well, and it's email marketing for authors. And he's doing all kinds of things to make it really, really perfect for authors. And he's taking things that he's learned, that other people have learned. He's even taken some ideas that I've had and starts working them in to make sure that everything in this is really easy to use. But what he's going to do is use it to show you some very basic things that authors can do to connect with their audience, to build their audience, and then automatically turn those fans into book buyers. And so, Nathan's the author of Authority and a couple other books that are really well done, and again, the creator of ConvertKit. And so I'm going to turn it over to him to get started, and then I'll be in the chat answering some questions. And then as you put questions in, I'm going to save those, and at the end, Nathan and I are going to do a Q&A for you guys as well. So I've been looking forward to this. I know I'm going to learn some things that I don't know. So Nathan, over to you, and looking forward to this.
All right, thanks, Tim. Yeah, so as we get started, I'll just, to introduce myself a little more, I'm first and foremost an author. So uh, I was a designer, designed a bunch of software, built iPhone apps, web applications, that kind of thing. And then I got into writing books, and I learned this amazing thing that uh, you can make money through writing books and teaching. And so that turned into my passion, and the last couple years have been good. So I guess as a point of credibility, I've done a little over $500,000 in book and course sales in the last 2 years. And I've done almost all of that through an email list. And so over the last 2 years or so, I've built up an email list of, this is actually, I should update this slide because we're now at about 27,000 subscribers to my blog. And so that's been incredibly powerful in driving revenue. Through that whole process of writing books, growing a list, I learned that a lot of the off-the-shelf tools weren't working. And later on, I'll kind of explain why they weren't working in the specifics. But that drove me to create something that had all these best practices that I was learning built in by default. And so that's how 2 years ago I started ConvertKit. Um, and it's been a long road to build up ConvertKit, but we are now fully focused on helping authors. And really got to say a big thank you to Tim for helping me plan out some of that, some of the features and functionality that we can use in ConvertKit to really serve authors well. So anyway, that's kind of me. I basically I write books and then am building building ConvertKit as an email marketing company. So like Tim said, throughout we'll take questions and that sort of thing. But before I move on, I'd like to get from all of you guys in the chat just an idea of where you're at with using email. And so if everyone could just post how or the current size of your email list. So if you want to just drop that in to the chat, whether it's you haven't started yet and you're at 0, or maybe you have 5,000 or 200, whatever it is, just drop it in the chat. And that'll give me an idea of where everyone's at. And so while that's coming in, the main thing that I learned of the $500,000 in book sales is that almost all of it is directly tied to my email list. And so that's had me just focus on everything on email. And so we've got some good numbers coming in. Okay, so Tim's got just under 9,000 email subscribers. So Tim, you're gonna have that go past 9,000 today. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like 23 away or something last time I checked. I'm very excited about this because every time like I'll get close and then I send an email and I knock it down again like by 30 unsubscribes or whatever.
Right. Yep, which always happens.
Right.
Yeah, so and here we've got quite the range. 800, 900, 200, 250,000. That's a pretty massive list. 17, 500. Nice. So this is good. I think you guys will learn a lot from this because there's a lot of things that we're going to cover that you can use to ramp up your list really quickly. So, all right. First, really quickly, let's talk about why email. You can build a platform on anywhere, right? The idea that you want to have is you need to be able to contact your readers. And so if you think about it, you could do that through Twitter or a Facebook fan page or a bunch of other things. And so really quickly, I want to show to you why email is the best way to do that. And it comes down to 3 reasons. Consistency, conversions, and control. And so let's talk about consistency right at first. Right in the beginning, when I decided, I wanted to be a blogger, I didn't even have the idea of writing a book. I just wanted to be, an internet famous blogger. I started a blog and it didn't really go anywhere at first, but then I wrote this post that said, it was titled, "How I Made $19,000 on the App Store While Learning to Code." And this post did amazingly well. Like my blog went from no traffic, like literally 100 visits in a month, up to 50,000 visits over 2 days. And because the post went viral, it hit the #1 spot on Hacker News, and it did amazing. And I had thought, okay, I've made it as a blogger. I from now on, I'm going to have this big blog. I'm going to be able to do sponsorships, sell products, all this stuff. And so I was a little surprised when the graph kind of changed the next month. And actually, if you look at this, and if you were to hide November 2011 on this graph, then you wouldn't even notice a difference. Like that spike would not even be there. And so what happened is I got all of this traffic. It showed up, and people read the post and then they left, and I had no way of contacting them. And so you need a consistent way to contact people, and that's email. Later on, you'll notice that things start to increase. My traffic starts to increase and be more consistent. And really, that's when I started using email. So let's compare that traffic graph that's kind of all over the map with email subscribers. If you're driving everything you're doing back to your email list, then what you're going to find is that it just increases, gradually each month. You're going to lose some subscribers, like Tim referred to, and you're going to gain some subscribers. But so long as you gain more than you're losing each month, you're going to see nice, predictable growth. And so this is my list growth between October 2012 and a year later, October 2013. And you can see it pretty much increased every single month. Now, if any of you are fans of recurring revenue, you'll notice that email subscribers are really like recurring revenue for your audience. It's consistent, it's predictable, and that's amazing to have. So the next reason is conversions. Now, with conversions, basically what we're going to cover is why email and not Twitter or Facebook. Okay, and so I got some really great numbers from my friends over at Gumroad. And for anyone who doesn't know, Gumroad is an e-commerce platform that you can use to sell, books, courses, any downloadable products, really. And they gave me some conversion rates by traffic source. And so, across tens of thousands of products, these are the aggregate numbers. And basically what they found is that YouTube, if someone comes from a YouTube link through to a product sold on Gumroad, they have a 2.2% likelihood of converting. Twitter is 5.4, Facebook 6.3, and email is 9.4%. So already email is close to twice as good at Twitter as far as conversion rates. But that's really only half the story. If you think about email and how you respond to things compared to Twitter, then you're going to get a totally different click rate. So if you think about, an email lands in your inbox, you're going to deal with it in some way. You're going to archive it, delete it, click on it, reply to it, something. Whereas, a tweet, you're just going to kind of watch it scroll by. You may engage with it, you may not. You most likely you won't even see it because you didn't happen to be near your phone at that time. And so what I found is when I analyzed my absolute best performing tweets of all time and then compared it to some of my poorly performing emails, so I'm already skewing this way in favor of Twitter. I found that I got the best click rate I could get on Twitter was 3.1% of my audience to click a link, whereas on an email I could easily get 20% to click a link. And so what that means is if we promote a link to 1,000 Twitter followers and 1,000 email subscribers, then what we're going to get is 31 clicks from Twitter and 200 clicks from email. And then if we apply those conversion rates that we got from Gumroad, then what you'll find is that we're going to get about 18 sales from that email list of 1,000 subscribers. And we're not even going to get 2 full sales from 1,000 Twitter followers. So an email subscriber is worth about 11 times as much as a Twitter follower. And I think that's actually a really conservative number. I think it's much, much higher. The last reason to use email over any other platform is control. Let's say you're building an audience. Let's say you use MySpace to build that audience. Where would you be at now? Right? Let's say you built up an audience of thousands of readers to promote your book and you did it all on MySpace, which is now basically a dead platform. That would really suck. Well, let's say you also did it with something else like RSS. But then what happens is Google Reader shuts down and people lose a lot of RSS subscribers. And so that's kind of dying out. Let's say you use another popular platform like Facebook. Well, Facebook has been implementing more and more changes to make it harder and harder to reach your audience because they're trying to get you to pay to reach your audience. If you've seen any of that where it's like boost this post to get to more of your subscribers. By default you're reaching about I think 15% of, or I should say about 15% of your Facebook fans will even have the opportunity to see something you post unless you pay to get more. So while those can be good things to have anecdotally or to help grow your audience on other platforms, you don't want everything you do to be there, because you really don't want to build your audience on a dying platform or one that you don't have control over. And so with email, let's say you don't like your provider. All you do, export your subscribers, import them somewhere else. You own that list and you own that relationship. So to wrap up that section really quickly, on why email, you want to use email because of consistent, predictable audience growth. It also has the highest conversion rate of any platform, and you get to control your audience and own your list. So we'll take a break to answer a few questions towards the end, but if you have any questions, drop them into the chat now, and Tim will make note of those. But before we go further, I want to show you 3 really tactical use cases of using email to grow your audience and sell more books. And so the first one is all about building your audience before launch. And here's how I like to do it. This is actually the landing page that I use to promote my very first book and get my very first email subscriber. And so step 1, if you haven't published your book yet, or you're just getting started, is to put up a pre-launch landing page. You can do this with ConvertKit, and to just ask for email subscribers. And so all you're saying at this point is sign up to be the first to hear when the book is ready. Then the other thing you want is an email form that can go at the end of any blog posts. So when I wrote promotional blog posts, things like that, or like in-depth tutorials or shared content from the book, I always have this email opt-in form at the bottom of the post. Okay, now let me walk you through the whole process with some new graphics that I actually just made yesterday, and hopefully will help explain this process and make it more clear. So here's how to launch a book with ConvertKit. What you're going to start with right at first is that pre-launch landing page. And so all those subscribers that you get from that landing page are going to go onto your email course. And so this landing page, you're going to promote it everywhere you possibly can. You're going to ask your friends to share it on Twitter and Facebook, and you're going to try to get as many email subscribers as possible. Let's say you get maybe 25 or 30 email subscribers from that. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to write a really good blog post about your topic. Okay, so in my case, that was a tutorial on how to design better software. If you're writing fiction, it might be a short story or a snippet from your book, something like that that's going to get people interested. And at the end of that, you're going to have a call to action for people to sign up to hear when the book is ready. And anyone who signs up for that is going to get dropped onto your email course. Now, as soon as that's ready, you're also going to add an email to your email course where that's that first blog post, that first story, tutorial, whatever it is. And that's going to go out to all your subscribers automatically. And then you're going to repeat that process. And so you're going to do it again. At this point, you're going to have more subscribers. Your list is going to grow, maybe 30, 50, a couple hundred subscribers at a time. And now, instead of just having one place that people can sign up for your list, you have 3. So you've promoted that book landing page everywhere you can, everywhere that your audience hangs out online, and that's gotten you a certain number of subscribers. But these 2 other blog posts are now also new gateways so that you can get more subscribers. And so you'll see that list start to grow over time. Next, you're going to do that a 3rd time. You're going to have 1 more blog post, and it's important to note that someone who signs up on this blog post, it's going to get added to the email course. And I should say an email course, some other providers call them like autoresponders or other things like that, but ConvertKit handles them in a really neat way where if somebody signs up and signs up on this 3rd email or this 3rd blog post, they're going to get that full sequence Whereas if you've just been sending these out as broadcasts, then whoever signed up on the third one and just joined your list would have missed those first two blog posts. So hopefully that makes sense. I can answer a lot of questions about that later because people tend to get a little hung up on that. But it's a really, really powerful system for building your launch sequence from the very beginning.
Well, and I'll jump in here and mention one thing too that I like about this is that so many times I feel like we create content and then we kind of put it out into the world and then it gets buried on our blog or it gets buried in somebody's inbox and nobody ever sees it again. So by doing this, you write it for your site once and then you use it long into the future, so everybody that signs up ends up being able to see all the stuff you've written before. So it's not like every time you write something new you use it once and then it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. And because the way most people send emails is a one-time email. You write it, you send it out. Everyone who's on your list at that exact moment gets it, and it doesn't benefit you any in the future. And I think the perfect example of this is if you've ever sent out an email and then immediately had like 3 or 4 replies saying, "Oh, there's a typo here," or "You did something, there's a little mistake." And if you send it out as a broadcast, like as a one-time email, then it's like, great, thanks for pointing that out, but I can't do anything about that because no one's ever going to get that email again. Whereas if you're building it as a course or an autoresponder from the beginning, then lots of people are going to get that in the future. And so you can refine that content, you can make it better, because you're not doing one-time work, you're doing things that will benefit your audience for a long time going forward. So as you're moving forward, you're going to put up another blog post, and you may have more than 3 promotional blog posts leading up to it. This is just my example. And you're going to have a post that's all the details about the book. It's going to tell people where they can buy it. Let's see, the exact price that it's going to be, what date it comes out. Kind of all that information. And you're also going to send that out or add that to your email course, so it'll go out to everyone on your list automatically. And that's going to get them really excited about the launch. And because you don't want to surprise everybody. You don't want to just be talking about or like sending out sample content and then all of a sudden say, okay, it's ready, go buy it. You need to build up to that and make the launch really an event. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have that launch email that goes out, and that is going to link to the book sales page. You're going to try to promote that sales page a bunch of other places. But really the bulk of your sales at this point are going to come from everyone that you've already gotten on your list. And so when I launched my book, The App Design Handbook, I had 800 email subscribers. And that drove about 75% of my launch day revenue. And the other 25% came from, people mentioning it on Twitter and things like that. But the vast majority of it came from my email list. The last thing that you're going to do is you're going to send a reminder email, because in any good launch you need some kind of urgency. So you need to get people to buy right now rather than put it off to next week or next year, because people will just forget and then they won't end up coming back to buy. And so the easiest thing to do is to say everybody who buys in the next 24 hours or in 3 days or whatever the time period is going to get 20% off, or they're going to get this for extra bonus content or something like that. Even you'll see big name authors like, I think Tim Ferriss did this with some of his books, where he said everybody who pre-orders within this window is going to get access to this Q&A hangout that we're doing. Things like that. You want to provide some kind of reason to buy today rather than buying later. And that reminder email goes out to say, hey, you have 4 hours left in that window or whatever it is. And that will drive really a lot of sales. So that's a really basic version of a launch sequence. It could end up having a lot more emails than that, but that's kind of like the bare minimum of what you would need to do. And then after launch, what you're going to do is you're going to come back and you're going to look at each one of these emails and try to improve it. You're going to, if you had any specific references to an exact day, you're going to remove those and tweak it so that it's a little more evergreen. And, because people who sign up later can go through the same sequence, and it can be a series of emails, details about the book, and then a call to action to buy. And then you might add in more educational content or more stories or things like that, and then have another call to action to buy. And we'll talk about that more. But basically, by following this process using an email course in ConvertKit, you've done all this. You've done the exact same amount of work, but you've created a system that's going to benefit you for a long time going forward. And so you've actually, everyone says you should write your autoresponder. Well, this way you've done it without any extra work. So the next thing, like the next really big win that I found using email, is to use a sample chapter to grow your list and increase sales. So I'll show you a couple examples. I just saw a really great question come in. But so that just makes me excited for Q&A. It's going to be good. So let's see. The first example is, this is for my book Authority, and you'll see that you can click to download a sample chapter, but I also have this email opt-in form that when they opt into that, it's going to send them the sample chapter. And that's really nice because, one, you get their contact information so they can join your list and all that, but also they can have it emailed directly to them. And so let's say you're browsing on your computer and you come across a sample chapter, they can put in their email address, and then later they could open up that email on their iPad or something to read the PDF or the EPUB later. So that's a really great, it's great for you as the author, and it's great for the reader as well. And then you have this little box here where it's, yes, I'd like to receive a free 30-day course on whatever the topic is. And you could opt them in automatically, or let them uncheck the box to opt out, whichever. And so what that does is it's going to drop them onto an email course similar to what we created before. A few other examples: if you don't want to edit your page, you could do it where it's a modal, like an overlay form. And so either when they start to leave the page or when they click a download button or something like that, then this form comes up and says, here, get a sample chapter. Or you could have it slide in when it scrolls past a certain point. And so those two are both really easy to implement without having to really edit any code or worry about it matching the styles on your page. So whichever one you choose, that's going to drop people onto an email course like this. And this is what it looks like inside of ConvertKit. And so you've got all the emails listed down the left side, and you'll see that they each have days written next to them. So 2 days after subscription, 5 days, 8 days, 12 days, and so on. And so that's a really easy way to see at a glance what your entire sequence is. And so this, what we've got here, is my sequence for taking someone who downloaded the sample chapter and then convincing them that it's good and reminding them to come back and buy. And so let's talk about what it takes to make a sale. So there's 3 keys to actually selling a book to someone who's a drive-by visitor. They showed up to your site and they're like, oh, this might be interesting. They've downloaded a sample. They're not sold yet. And so we need to cover these 3 things. So trust, desire, and then you need to actually have a pitch. And so in this, the first 4 emails of that sequence are all about building up trust and a desire to buy it. And so I'm teaching them lots of things for free, giving them valuable information right away, and that is that's building up the trust. And then it's also building up a desire for the book, because I'm strongly implying if you like this stuff, the book's going to have way more of this, and it's going to be really good. And then what I do is an email later on in that is a sales pitch. and it's more specifically, instead of like hinting at, if you like this, the book's going to have more. That email just comes out directly and says that this is what um, the book covers, all of these things. In this email, I'm talking about all the interviews and bonus content that you get with the book, and so that's really effective. And that email drives a lot of sales from people who, otherwise might have kind of been following along, and that's what tips them over the edge to actually buying the book. And then I go back to educational content, because let's say someone gets that sales pitch email and then they don't actually buy the book, and that's totally fine. It may take a while, and so I go back to more educational content, and then a future email is going to be another sales pitch where it'll be educational content, maybe tied in with like a soft sell or a reminder to go buy the book. Other things you could do is you could work in, an email that's like highlighting some of your best Amazon reviews, things like that are going to gradually convince people to buy. You don't have to take like this hard sell approach because you have time on your side. You're not worried, like you don't lose them as soon as they leave your site. Like with visitors, you can build out an email sequence that's 30 days long to really convince them, because you have their attention over time, so long as you're delivering valuable content. So that's how I do it with email courses. You get to send out all of these emails to people who download your sample chapters without doing any work. You set it up once and it just runs forever. And I get at least a sale every day from people who had downloaded a sample chapter and then got that automated email course, which is just fantastic. The last technique I want to show you with email is how to use an email course to really quickly grow your audience. Before I get into that, I need to take a drink of water before I risk losing my voice. So this is a really fun one, and I'm going to use a couple examples. I'm going to use one example that actually just happened in the last week or so. But first I'll use kind of my keystone example. And this is a course I put together called Mastering Product Launches. And I write a book about how to sell more books and launch books and that kind of thing. So I want to get a lot of people in the process of thinking about launches, and I want to teach more about that. And then I also have ConvertKit, which is software that helps people do that. So I created this free course, and it's got a bunch of emails on. I talk about how to teach to build your audience, how to increase traffic, how to use tiered pricing to triple revenue, a bunch of stuff like that. And it's this great free course. And so then what happens is, as we go through that, I can work in pitches for Authority and ConvertKit, both in that course. So how this worked to grow subscribers really well is every time I write a guest post on someone else's audience, if it's about product launches or writing books or something like that, I can link back to this. And so one example is I wrote a post for a website called Smash Magazine, and they have a really big audience. And the post was titled How to Launch Anything. And it was really long, really detailed, and in-depth. And at the end of it, I just said, I don't want your education on product launches to end here. So I wrote this free 30-day course. You can go sign up for it here. And it's going to take you, this was the beginner stuff in the blog post. It's going to take you through the intermediate level stuff, again, all for free. And that ended up getting me about 1,000 email subscribers just from that one blog post. And so that was an incredible way to build your list. And so you always got to think about, if you're asking people to join your list, what's in it for them? And email courses are a great way to say, well, this is exactly what's in it for you. You're going to get these nicely timed lessons that are over the next 30 days going to teach you some really valuable stuff. And so that's what my friend Wes did with his course on mastering online video. And so he signed up for ConvertKit, I think, about 2 weeks ago. And we helped him put together this landing page, and he's producing some really great videos about how to use video for online business. And because he has some big name clients, but he's just starting to grow his email list. And so um, he tied that into an email course. And he actually, at the time they're doing this, he only has 3 videos in that email course, but that's fine. Um, you can add that later. And so he's got these emails gradually dripping out, each with a video in it. And then what he was able to do is go promote this landing page a bunch of places. And so he submitted it to places like Product Hunt, asked a whole bunch of friends to share it on Twitter and Facebook, and then just gradually grew up that subscriber base. So before, he was looking at probably a series of months to build an email list to 500 subscribers. And through this process that we helped him with, he was able to do it in I think 5 days. Yeah, because he started promoting it on Monday last week, and by Friday he had over 500 email subscribers. And so now, 2 weeks in, he's at 949 email subscribers, which is pretty awesome. And you can see the conversion rate on that landing page is really good. And that's a ConvertKit hosted landing page, so it actually only took a few minutes to set up. The hardest part was writing the copy for that. ConvertKit does some other cool things, like you can see here, tracking the conversion rate and the number of subscribers by each refer. So you can see, Product Hunt and Twitter drove a certain number. But the really cool thing is you can tag every link you put out with something, with a little code, and then you can track things really well. And so, like, this one in here is actually me. When I tweeted about Wes's page, I tagged it with just NV, my initials, and I was able to see that from that one tweet, got 95 visitors, 19 subscribers for a 20% conversion rate. And then later I had another tweet that didn't get as many visitors, and so it wasn't as many subscribers, but it got a slightly higher conversion rate. And so it's really nice to be able to see all that, because you try to promote things in so many different sources, and often you just don't know what's working and what isn't. And so ConvertKit just has all of that built in for you. And so, like, we can see that Product Hunt did amazingly well, whereas Reddit, which is we tagged with the letter R, only brought in 14 subscribers. And so that kind of thing is just amazingly powerful. And so that is how you use ConvertKit to grow a course really quickly. And that's my favorite way to get a lot of subscribers. The next thing that I want to talk about is, beyond those 3 tactics, is can you use just any tool, right? There's a lot of email marketing platforms out there that are fairly, I guess, generic, and so I guess the easiest way to cover this is to talk about why I built ConvertKit, and then that'll help you understand, what I saw as the need, and because as an author, and I think, all of you, since you're authors, are gonna see similar problems. And so I was using MailChimp to start out, and these are the 3 biggest issues that I ran into. The first one is that it's really hard to give out an incentive. And so let's say you want people to sign up to your list through a form on your sales page, and give them the sample chapter. So as soon as they sign up, they get the sample chapter emailed to them. That's actually really, really hard to do. And then with MailChimp, it's really hard to do. And once you, if you want to add a second one, let's say you want to send this free video you produced or something like that to people who sign up for one form, and you want to send something else to people who sign up for a different form, you can't actually do that in MailChimp unless you create different lists, and that's really bad. And so that gets into the next reason, which is you can only have one opt-in form per list, unless you do some really fancy stuff with their API, and you don't want to get into that. And so that is really, really limiting. And so that means you can't have a different opt-in form on your landing page as you have at the end of your blog posts or for your sample chapter. And so that's really limiting. Um, uh, the next thing is that in MailChimp or Aweber, it's really difficult to create email courses. And so those are the emails where it's a preset sequence going out to everybody. And some of the stuff that we talked about earlier is just either really hard to build in MailChimp because their interface doesn't work for it, or it's just not supported at all. And that's something we can talk about more in the questions. But those are the three big frustrations that I had trying to implement these best practices in MailChimp. And so that's why I built ConvertKit directly for authors. Because it had, I'm an author and I wanted to sell more books and I needed a tool to help me do that. And so we're able to solve all those problems, kind of as I showed you in going through those three tactics. But then on top of that, we're able to do a few things that are just for authors. And I want to walk you through those. And this is actually some advice that Tim gave me a few months ago of, when we serve an audience of just authors, there's plenty of things we can do to help authors that no other provider can really tackle because they're trying to go for this big, broad market. And we're just trying to serve authors as best as we can. So one of the things that we do is we'll help you with a book cover design. So here's 3 different book covers that we did. And what we found is often people would need to get up a pre-launch landing page for their book. And they'd need to get that up to start gathering subscribers, but they'd be held back by the fact that they didn't have any graphics to make it look good. And so we created a bunch of templates, and then our team, will help each customer who needs that, come up with a fairly simple but elegant book cover so that you can put something out there and start gathering your subscribers right away. Another thing that we're able to do is we have a concierge service. So if you're moving over from another provider, we'll handle that entire move for you for free. And so that's been great for people moving over from MailChimp and Aweber. And as we're doing that, we'll help provide advice and support and make some recommendations that you can set up things differently. Because the last thing along those lines that we offer is we do more than just tech support. So let's say you were you had a question about how best to market your book or how best to use email marketing, and you wrote into MailChimp about that. They'd kind of be like, why are you asking us about that? Like, we don't give marketing help. They'd say, do you have a technical question that we can solve? And at ConvertKit, we're trying to do so much more because we've used all these tactics to sell a whole lot of books, and so we're using, we want to help you do the same. And so we'll provide some feedback, if you ask for it, on maybe your launch plan, or if you write in with a technical question, like how do I set up this with my landing page, we might give you a suggestion of, we'll solve that problem for you, but then also say, hey, why don't you try this different headline? Because we've got some great people on the team who are a really good copywriter. I'm a good designer, all of those things, and we have a ton of experience selling books. And so, yeah, basically the point of all that is that we're really trying to help. And then the last thing that we're doing is we've got a little bonus that we put together, and this is at Tim's recommendation, and this is the exact copy that I use for pitching people who upsell or who download a sample chapter to come back and buy. And then I'm going to give you another version of it that you can use. And so this is exactly what you can copy and paste into ConvertKit and just tweak a few things in order to have all your own copy and have your own upsell sequence. And so that's something that anybody who buys or signs up for ConvertKit either during this call or in the next 24 hours, I'm going to send you that, and I'll get that out to you probably about on Friday or so. So that's a really, I think, a really useful thing that we're doing, because it's going to help you get set up so much more quickly and save you a lot of time writing all that copy. Um, so uh, if you want to sign up, you can go to convertkit.com/plans and plans-pricing. Um, and we've got a handful of different plans there. They're all just based on the number of subscribers that you have. And so as you start out small, as your list grows and you're able to make more from your audience, the plans increase from there in cost. And so one thing that's really great about that is that we're trying to help all of our customers do really well because our incentives are aligned, right? If you grow a large email list of really engaged subscribers, then you pay ConvertKit more. And so, people like Wes, who did the video course, we did a bunch of stuff to help him grow his list because we want him to be really successful with ConvertKit, because not only is he happy, but it also bumps him up to a higher plan. And it's a win-win for everybody. The incentives are really nicely aligned. So I think we've got a bunch of really great questions in the chat, and we'll come back to some of the things on features of ConvertKit or things like that as questions come up. But Tim, you want to kick us off with some questions?
Yeah. The one that came up the most that I have some input on, but I'd like to hear what you have to say first, is just what about fiction versus nonfiction? So of course, a lot of what you've talked about has been nonfiction specific. So what kind of advice would you give on the email course and those kind of things for a fiction writer?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is that I personally am not a fiction writer, and so that's why all of my examples, are nonfiction training. But there are some really great examples of people doing all these same tactics with fiction books. And the ideas apply in the same way, because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get more great content out to your subscribers. And in trade for that, you're trying to get them to give them your email address so that you can have that long-term relationship. And so a lot of what we're talking about is just, instead of sending them, business training or a tutorial on how to design better software, you're sending them information about, or you're sending them stories or, background on certain characters or things like that true fans are really going to like. Another thing that I think is fantastic that more authors should do is share more of the behind-the-scenes process. I'd love it if more authors shared like extra stories about a particular character or how they wrote the book a certain way, or because wouldn't you love it if your favorite fiction authors told you about when I wrote the first draft, this character, his name was this and this is why we changed it, and all that. So the more connected you are with your readers, the more you can, I guess, you have the ability to share more of that backstory and get a lot more, turn your readers much more into fans. But Tim, I think you have a lot more experience on the fiction side, so I'd love to hear
Yeah,
what you got there.
I go all the way back to this quote I read by Hugh MacLeod, probably pushing a decade ago now, in the early days of blogging, and he talked about, well, the quote is, treat it like an adventure worth sharing. And he's talking about how, as you go through your adventure of life and writing and whatever you do, you use your platform to share that adventure. So when it comes to fiction, I look at fiction writers about, like, well, what are you interested in? What are you reading? What are you learning? What are the things that are going on around you that you could write about? I think a lot of authors would do well, for lots of different reasons, to just start writing reviews of some of their favorite books. It's a great way to connect with other authors. It's great content that would be, if people are interested in your books, they're probably interested in the books you like as well. I remember one of the times I really nerded out over books was, I ended up I've done some work for Hugh Howey, and we were doing something together in San Francisco. So we're sitting across the table from each other, and all we did was scream at each other about the different books we'd read and loved. And oh my God, have you read Lexicon? That was amazing, you know. And it's like, you know, sharing that kind of stuff with your audience is the same type thing. It was from your perspective. Any kind of research you do, like if you, you know, I've been connecting with authors lately somehow that write a lot of military books, and so they'll write, you know, in-depth things about like the different guns that are used, the different weapons that are used, the different tactics that are used, and if you wrote those up, that stuff is fascinating. And if people are interested in your military books, they're going to be interested in the other things. And so while, you know, Nathan calls them email courses, because you know they're teaching something, this is a similar idea where you write these up, you put them up, and then it's a great way as people jump on your email list for them to get to know who you are, more about the background of the book, like Nathan was talking about. You know, so many times when we talk about marketing with fiction, we think about like, okay, well, you know, I can't teach somebody something. You know, I'm not like teaching you how to lose 10 pounds. So all I can pretty much do is say, hey, you know, buy my book. And I'm like, that if that's really the only thing interesting about you is the fact that you have a book for sale, then you need to do some introspection, because you know you have a lot more interesting things going on that you can write about. And those are the things you should be focusing on, knowing that if people become fans of you, they're going to want to be involved in what you're doing by buying one of your books. And really, I'm testing this theory really hard right now, because you know most of the people that have connected to me are interested in the email marketing side of things, but I'm in the middle of writing, well, now I'm on the editing part of a fiction book that I'm going to release, and I'm hoping that people who are fans of me will buy that as well. So yeah, so don't think so much, you know, remember you're trying to get people to be fans of you over any one particular book. So once you kind of think that way, it becomes a little easier to come up with different things that you can write about.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing is the more people are fans of you, the more it carries over to the next thing that you do. Because let's say you decide later on you want to switch genres of fiction that you're writing. And if you only built up fans of that particular series, you might have a harder time getting them to switch over to your new thing. But if they love you and what you're interested in and all of that, because you've shared the process and you've shared, you know, just all the way along, I think they're going to have a much easier time following you to whatever happens to interest you down the road.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's true. There's lots of examples of fiction writers out there as well, but I'm going to jump back to a nonfiction example because one of my favorites is my client Dan Pink. You know, his first book was Free Agent Nation. It was about how freelancing was changing the work world. And then his next book was a Japanese comic book about business. And then his next book was about how the brain works. And then his next book was about motivation in the workplace. And then this last book he wrote is on sales. I mean, you don't get a more wide range of topics. And if he had tried to just build up an audience around freelancing, it would have been really hard to transfer those people from book to book, where he built an audience around himself, Dan Pink, and the way he sees the world and his worldview. And most of the things he talks about on his website have nothing to do with any particular book. It's just things that he's interested in, things he's learning as he goes through life. So, you know, looking at that, that's what I focus on as a fiction writer is, you know, people, you know, and I think somebody just left a comment about, you know, well, I wrote about something, but it didn't convert to sales. Well, not every single email is going to convert, is about converting to sales. You know, if you go back through most of the stuff that I put out into the world, it's completely free. There's no sales pitch. You know, I'm not even trying to sell my book. You know, none of that kind of thing. But it's just building that audience, building that goodwill, building that connection with them. So when you have something, they're going to want to be a part of it. And I've just seen that work over and over and over, no matter the genre or, you know, first book or 10th book.
Yep, I love that. Yeah,
Uh,
Dan's such a good example of that too.
okay, so next question. What's the best way to start getting your initial subscribers? So I sign up, you know, I have me and my mom on the email list. You know, how do I go from 2 to my first 100 or my first 500 or 1,000?
Yeah, so my favorite way to do this is you start with a pen and paper. And what I want you to do is write down 10 names. And these people are who you're writing to. So you're writing a book. Hopefully, you're writing it with the intention that people read it. And so these 10 people are people that you know personally or have some kind of relationship with that you're writing to that would be interested in it. So whether they like to read fiction books of that genre that you're writing or they want to learn that skill that you're teaching, 10 people. And then what you're going to do is you're going to reach out to each of them and say, this is what I'm doing. Um, what I'm wondering is what you would like to learn. So, two questions. What would you like to learn, or what kind of content would you like to see related to this? And then the second thing is, where do you go online right now to learn more about that? And so they're going to give you lists of, well, these are the forums that I go to. These are the blogs that I read. These are the communities I'm a part of. And you take all of that back and just compile a spreadsheet of it, write it all down. And then by the time you go through that with 10 people, one, you'll have a great idea of what to write, but you'll also have a really solid list of where to promote it. And so that's where you put up that pre-launch landing page for your book, and you do that before you even start writing the book, and then you go promote it in all those places that are appropriate that those 10 people gave you as resources and places to go. And then finally, you make a little comment and say, if you'd like to follow along, you can sign up here as well. And I really appreciate it. But then you also have a kind of a core group of 10 people at that point who are somewhat invested in your success. And then they also, you can share content with them as you write it and say, what do you think about this? You have kind of this inner circle that can help you out and grow your list. But my favorite thing to do is to get that list of where do you're trying to learn this thing or you care about this topic, where do you currently go online to do that? And it's the easiest research method.
Yeah, that reminds me of I'm going to forget exactly what the advice was, but I remember similar advice from Ramit years ago, Ramit Sethi from I Will Teach You to Be Rich, about any time that you can, just take what you're doing out into the real world and see what happens. So many times we're thinking about ways to automate or digitize or like just have the perfect Google search or the perfect keywords, and just reaching out to people and asking them is the best way to find out, especially those initial things. Early on, I tried to get every single people that subscribed to my email list to email me, and I would email them back, and we would just go back and forth if we could. Now I can't do that because of the scale, but it was important early on to really build that connection and learn from them about what they're looking to read, what they're interested in, why they signed up in the first place. And this, it goes back to the best way in business, with my consulting business, when we were looking for clients, the best way to get clients was to ask one client to tell me 2 or 3 other people that they think would be a good fit. That beat every time. I'd make more money doing that than like perfect search engine optimization or any kind of advertising or any kind of cool trick. Is just ask somebody. So yeah, what Nathan said was just gold. Like, just making that list, that's a really great way to get started, because you get those first 10, and then your next goal is 100. And I'm actually working with somebody right now that's at like 53 subscribers, and I'm helping him get to that 100. And I'm like, what's going to be funny is this amount of work that you're doing to get to your first 100 is the exact same amount of work it's going to take to get to 1,000 once you hit 100. Like, it gets easier and it grows faster, but man, that first slog is absolutely the worst, but it is signing them up basically one at a time.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, the more subscribers you get, it becomes exponentially easier to grow from there. Like, my email list increased by a couple thousand, and I just checked in, kind of noticed that, and was like, oh, that's really cool. But I didn't work incredibly hard for that because the systems were already in place.
Well, and then yeah, you have the system. So it's kind of like people ask why I named my book Your First 1,000 Copies. It's because once you've sold 1,000 copies, you've done something to sell more copies than you can just like selling to the people you know. So you've got something working that it's now going to be easier to get the next 1,000. And that's usually the case. Like if you can get to 100 subscribers, if you can get to 500, you've got something going that's going to be make it easier to get to 1,000. And the other is that as your email list grows, it opens more doors. So then bigger sites will want to partner with you to do stuff. You're just going to have kind of more clout as you go out into the world. Okay, next question, and I think this was the one you referred to earlier. What is the best time to set up a landing page? Should you have your book finished first, or should you just do it early?
Yeah, you should do it early, because if you go to all the work to write, edit, and finish this book, and you've got it, and you're like, all right, who wants to buy it? And during the time you've been talking to no one, and you have no fans or subscribers, or nobody even knows what you're working on, that's a solvable problem, but you're kind of in trouble at this point. It would be much better if throughout this process you were building subscribers and all of that. And there's something about telling a story, like you said, Tim, earlier. You're telling a story and you want people to follow along, and going from not having any words written on a page to a produced and finished book that's ready to launch is a compelling story to tell. And so as you are writing the book and editing it and getting it ready for launch, you want people that you can tell that story to. And so you want to start getting your subscribers from day zero, really. So wherever you are in the process, the book you're thinking about writing or the book you're halfway written, you need to start growing a list for it. And so I would put up that pre-launch landing page right away. Tim and I were talking yesterday about like what's one takeaway that everybody should have from this. And it's to go set up a pre-launch page for their book and start capturing email subscribers. And yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, on that, because you're a great designer and you can just churn these things out, but people like me, mere mortals, can't come up with beautiful book covers from day one. So what would you suggest to somebody who, they're just starting their book or they're halfway through writing it and the covers, might be 6 months away? What kind of thing would you put up on the landing page if somebody doesn't have like an official cover yet?
Yeah, so obviously if you use ConvertKit, we'll help you with that cover. And so that takes care of a huge obstacle for you. If you're not using ConvertKit, then I would find some kind of imagery. Even if you found a template somewhere, or I think there's a website called like psdcovers.com or something like that, that will kind of take a basic image and generate it into a cover. Because at this point, all you need to tell people who land on the page, this is a book, and here's the working title. You can change all that later. You can redesign the cover later when you're closer to launch. You can change the name of the book, but you need to get people to follow along. So anybody who signs up for ConvertKit will help you get that cover done and get that landing page up. But otherwise, I just try to find some simple imagery, some simple text on the cover, and that's at least something to get you started.
All right, that was my own question as follow up to the. Let's see. We'll go with this one here. We're right at the top of the hour, so we'll make this one the last one. If you have multiple books, do you need multiple courses? I know from your site that you don't like separate lists. Talking about me, I don't usually like separate lists. So how would you go about doing that?
Yeah. So the way ConvertKit handles this, I don't have this issue. I used to have it with MailChimp though. Is ConvertKit doesn't do lists in the traditional sense, where like you start a list as step one in the process, and then everything you do from then on is to that list. With ConvertKit, you can create different opt-in forms or different email courses, and then later group them into whatever lists or segments you want. And so you can change those at any time, and they're much more fluid. But I think the other part of the question is, related to the email courses, and I would do a separate email course for each book. Because I would have, if you download the sample chapter, it'd be the email course that drips out. But that may only be 6 or 7 emails before they get added to kind of your main list where they're going to get updates about everything that you're doing.
Yeah, and I have lots of different kind of incoming things, and like I am on Mailchimp currently, and when Nathan describes the pains that go into getting things to run right, I totally feel it because I'm a programmer. That's what I went to school to be, and I have like all this API code running and like all this crazy stuff just to like wrangle it in right. Um, but and I have like 12 different. It's horrible, but I have like different streams that people can come in. So like, I recently launched that hacking Amazon course. So that's one way somebody can come in. They're going to get a series of emails, and then they'll get put on my main list. And then I'm coming out with another one next month, and it's going to be that. And then I have my main free 30-day course that people can come into. And then I have some other kind of smaller ways, like if somebody signs up through reading the book or something. And so I think of it as like all these kind of tributaries coming into one. They eventually get down to the one kind of main river where they hear from me on an ongoing basis. Anytime you can, you want to keep things simple because this stuff, the complexity grows exponentially, and then you really lose track of what you're doing, and then you make a change and it screws everything up. It's a mess. So anything that you can do to kind of keep things simple is good. So okay.
I totally agree with that.
Let's see. Okay, so I think that covers everything. So we'll stop here, and as I mentioned before, we're going to send out this video. So if you missed anything, if you missed any of the slides or anything like that, we're going to send out the video by tomorrow, and you can take a look at that. Also, the big thing here, because it's funny because I'm sitting here recommending ConvertKit while I myself am on MailChimp, and it really is one of those things like, man, if I could go back and have something built specifically for authors, this is where I would start. And so that's why I was excited to have Nathan come on, because I get emails all the time from people frustrated with MailChimp or Aweber or whatever because they can't get it to do the right thing. And then I have to be careful about what I recommend to do because I'll say, well, you should do it this way, knowing I wrote like my own special custom PHP code to make it do exactly what it needs to do. So what I like is that it is email marketing for authors, which means he's doing a lot of things that are specifically for authors, and it's going to keep going that way. And a lot of the features he has coming out soon are really cool. So I recommend you check it out and try it out. And again, there's a great team there to help you out with anything you get stuck on. So Nathan, I really appreciate this. It was really informative, and I enjoyed it. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun. And if anyone wants to, if you have kind of a general question about ConvertKit, the easiest place to get that answered is support@convertkit.com. Or if you just email me personally, Nathan@convertkit.com. I'll be, in and out of email all day answering that. And then the last thing is, like we said, anybody who signs up in the next 24 hours or so, we'll make sure to get you all those, the email course copy that you can use to get started. So I'm really excited about this. It's fun to see all the reactions from everybody in the chat, and it's going to be really fun to see people really grow their lists and sell a lot more books because of it. That's what I care about. So.
All right, thanks, Nathan. Everybody have a great day.
See you guys.